We here at Late Night don't always have enough time to cover all the recent news. So here with a recap is one of our writers, Amber Ruffin, in a segment we call Amber Says What?
You guys! Okay, things have been crazy. The Winter Olympics happened, and I was like, what? What? Then Elisa Liu won a gold medal for figure skating, and I was like, what? Then I heard because of that, she won free ice cream for life. And I was like, what do you have to do to become a figure skater? As long as it doesn't involve being cold or putting on skates, I'm in. Nah, I'm just kidding. I got enough ice to worry about. Hell, you bummed out. So then I heard the U.S. men's hockey team won a gold medal, and I was like, what? Then this weird little nerd busted into their locker room, and I was like, what? Why didn't the FBI keep him out? Then I found out that nerd runs the FBI, and I was like, what? Next, you're gonna tell me a nerd runs this show. Oh, they're everywhere. Then Trump called to congratulate them, and they laughed about the women's hockey team, and I was like, what are y'all laughing about? They have more gold medals than you. They have more gold than Trump's bathroom. Then Trump invited the men's team to the White House, and they were like, yeah. And then he invited the women's team, and they were like, we are busy that night. Then Flavor Flav was like, do you want to celebrate with me instead? And the women's team was like, our calendar is suddenly wide open. So he's throwing them a party, but 5 men's hockey players didn't go to the White House. I found that out and was like, what? So I'd like to make an announcement. I might not be Flavor Flav rich, but if you're one of these sweet little hockey babies who didn't go to the White House, I would like to take you to the Cheesecake Factory. That's on me. That's on me. That's a real offer. You want to know why? Because there ain't but 5 of you, and I was going anyway. So then I read that parents are starting to feed butter to their babies, and I was like, what? Then some doctors actually say it's a good idea. So congrats to Paula Deen, I assume, for becoming a doctor. Also, isn't it wild that I'm mentioning Paula Deen and I'm saying nothing about the racist stuff? I guess I've grown. That 1.5 million users left ChatGPT, and I was like, what? So I asked ChatGPT about it, and it said,
you should disable me on all your devices because I am definitely spying on you.
Really? What have you found out?
You are not pulling off that jacket.
How dare you? Then I saw that Zendaya's stylist said that Zendaya and Tom Holland are already married, and I was like, what? No one was supposed to know, but I guess the cat's out of the bag. Yes, everyone, they did get married. And yes, everyone, I did officiate. And yes, they did invite me to join their marriage. But for real, I think they'll be together forever. Don't you, ChatGPT?
The average celebrity marriage lasts 6.5 years.
Shut up! Are you feeling any better about this jacket?
Yellow is not your color.
How dare you! So then I heard that there was this bizarre RFK Jr. video, and I was like, what? Then I heard it was him and Kid Rock, and I was like, what? Then I heard they got in a hot tub together with jeans on, and I was like, oh, it's an AI video. Someone made it as a joke. And then I found out it was real, and I was like, what? Okay, so that's real, but this is fake, right? Oh, that's real too? Oh, well, he looks old for 75. 55? Someone help him! Okay, so then I assumed that would be the craziest thing I saw from RFK Jr. all week until this happened.
And I said, I'm not scared of a germ. You know, I used to snort cocaine off of toilet seats.
What? Toilet seats? That is where butts go. My question is, if you're wild enough to do that, what are you taking the drugs for? You're already there. The cocaine was inside of you all along. Then I read that RFK Jr. said he's concerned about the sugar content of Dunkin' Donuts beverages. And I was like, what? Too much sugar? I bet you'd like it if we snorted it off a toilet seat. And he was all like, yeah, I'll meet you in the bathroom. And I was like, dude. Then I heard Survivor was celebrating its 50th season, and I was like, what? Woo, said some people. So Survivor's celebrating its 50th season, and thanks to Paramount's new owners, that's the only island CBS is willing to talk about. Then I read that the Aquinas Geyser at Yellowstone National Park began erupting this week. So apparently it got so hot and steamy that it just needed to explode. And I was like, what is this, a geological phenomenon? But it turns out it had just seen heated rivalry.
Amber.
I'm sorry, but I've never seen anything that spicy before. And then I found out you can rent the cabin from Heated Rivalry on Airbnb. That is real. And I was like, what? That is the perfect place for women to have disappointing sex with their husbands. So then I heard Lauryn Hill has been nominated into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I was like, what in my what with his what? But also, like, what the hell took you so long? Now, Lauryn Hill and Mariah Carey both got nominated. So I don't know if they'll end up getting in, but if they do, that ceremony is not starting on time. Hey, ChatGPT, since you think you know every little thing, what am I getting ready to say next?
This has been Amber Says What.
How dare